Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to our special meeting of the adoption of the 2021-22 budget. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting was advertised in the Asbury Park Press and the Beacon on January 14th, 2021, and by posting a notice in the Forked River Post Office and the Lenoka Harbor Post Office, and by filing a copy of the notice with the Lacey Township Clerk as required by the Open Public Meeting Act. Mr. DeGeorge, could we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Claus.
Here.
Mr. Scanlon.
Here.
Mr. Peters.
Present.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Present.
Mrs. Downing.
Here.
Mr. Polino.
Present.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Present. At this time, can we have a report of the superintendent? Dr. Clark?
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. My comments are going to be brief, but what I did want to say is that it's hard to believe that we are here at our public hearing, even though it does feel as if we've been working on this budget for a very, 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 very long time. But as Mr. DeGeorge has presented in his budget boot camps, we know that the budget build for the next school year begins as soon as the school year starts. And so it's been an ongoing process. We don't do it alone, all of us. We play a big part in it, but our administrators play a big role in the process as well. And like I said, we've been talking about this budget build for quite some time. We've had some challenges. We're going to continue to have challenges as long as S2 is in place. We continue to fight that fight, and we're currently waiting to see where the lawsuit takes us. We don't have definitive answers yet, but S2 has done a lot of damage to many districts, including ours. And even though we are getting closer to the end of S2, we still have some challenges ahead. And so I just want to thank this board for the many, many, many conversations, the dialogue, the collaboration. I want to thank Mr. DeGeorge for his efforts in getting us here tonight. And let's adopt the budget.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Mr. DeGeorge?
Sure, if I could just ask everybody to join seat in the audience, we'll do a brief presentation of the public hearing portion of our budget.
I didn't know we were getting the presentation.
You got it. Brought to you by Hitachi. All right, there it is. Good evening, everyone. And as Dr. Clark said, welcome to the public hearing on the 2021-2022 district budget.
So we begin as we always begin with our mission statement. I know that in strategic planning, we're looking at changing this, but we start with it because it is the goal toward which we aim every challenge. So it is important for us to do everything we do to prepare the whole child for the future. This budget, as Dr. Clark said, is really brought to you through the hard work of our Board of Education, and personally and publicly, I thank them for all that they do to support us. As Dr. Clark also said, the issue is state aid and the cuts under S2. This year, we lost a little over 1.3. We're looking at another $2+ million in the next 3 years if the law holds, and depending upon, as Dr. Clark said, the results of the lawsuit. So, as we do, and we said at the tentative budget adoption, there will be things that change between the tentative budget and tonight. We did sit down, as we said we would, and looked at revenue, but there are no, at this point, viable, and that's important, viable, sustainable, additional sources of revenue. That said, however, the board is convened once again a committee to meet in the very near future to talk about the importance of trying to find alternative out-of-the-box sources of revenue. We did, however, come up with some movement of appropriations, so let me explain. The top one, there were some teacher salaries that, I'm going to just tell you the truth, were left out of the budget somehow, and a board member brought that to our attention, and of course, we cannot and will not cut staff, and so to do that, we increased the reduction in, increased the lease payments this year that we're supposed to pay next year, and also we increased the terminal leave payments this year for people next year. That's the payments to retirees, and that's how that issue was resolved, and I take responsibility for that. As we did say at our public workshops on the budget, we had 3 of them, and I thought they were very, very good things to do, and we'll do them, I think, next year and years to come. We will add 1 teacher at the MD, multiple disabilities level, and in order to do that, to fund that, we had a reduction in workers' compensation insurance, which I think I mentioned during the workshops. Schools Insurance Group contacted me, said workers' comp is giving you a rebate, and we talked about it, and I asked if we can use that rebate to accredit to next year, which is to our advantage. They said sure. In addition, and to be clear, we did not reduce the athletics budget necessarily. We took a look at some of the things in the athletics budget, and there was one example that there was some officials' fees and other things in the middle school account, which we moved to the Fund 20 or the grants account, and the rest came, a couple $8,000 or so, came because at this time we now know the final bid prices for some of our athletic equipment, and fortunately for us, the bid prices were lower than the projected prices, so we just took advantage of that in order to fund that extra teacher. Very important to note, at the bottom, we will, as we said, had an additional school psychologist to the child study team, will be funded through the ESSER II grant, again, that lives in Fund 20. So those are the changes that happened from the tentative to the final budget. Nothing changes here from the last time. Still the same sources of revenue, the same exact total revenue from last time, nothing changed at all. So if there are any questions about this, please feel free to email me or give me a call. Debt service, as we said, continues to decrease year over year. That will be, in the far right-hand column, the net amount of principal we will owe at the end of next school year. We started at over $40 million, and now we're down to $14 million. We will still try our very best to lower that. Maybe we're not looking in the very near future at borrowing any more money. So this is a pretty impressive a very good debt service report. The grants budget, as I said, the Fund 20 budget, the big one is NCLB, it's called ESEA, IDEA for special ed still, the ESSER money, which we spoke about before, and if you paid attention at the other workshops, that ESSER money, that $2.3 million, is broken down into three important buckets. The most important really to us instructionally is the money that Dr. Clark and Mr. Decker have put together, a plan for a summer academy to help kids who might have had some disadvantage in learning during COVID to take advantage of this wonderful opportunity that the board is providing them. Stabilization aid and digital divide aid we don't have next year, so our total grant budget went up about $300,000. The operating budget, where the lion's share of the money lives. So the revenue side, again, nothing at all changes here from the time we spoke about this budget. So I will tell you this though, there have been some conversation around the fact that, well, the budget increased. It increased 0.29%. Really a very modest increase in the general fund budget. And I think it's some good work that the board did here to get it to where it is. Property tax levy, again, the very same, using $300,000, which is all the board has available to it, of bank cap to increase the operating budget portion of the levy 2.6%. But that increase is offset because of the decrease in the property tax debt service budget property tax levy of 2.7, which gives you a net increase of 2.28%. State aid remains the same. Again, our equalization aid dropped $1.3 million. This year we met the challenge and we're working hard to plan to meet the challenge in the years to come. Fund balance, the equity, the ownership, the value that we have in our district. We're taking $873,000+, which is from the 2019-2020 school year. And we're appropriating it into our next year budget to, as I said at the bottom, very, very important. Dr. Clark, Mr. Decker, and the administrative team worked very hard to purchase new curriculum to remain compliant with the learning standards in our state. As we have done for a number of years now, we will withdraw money from our capital reserve to take on some very important capital projects which are related to the health and safety of our students and staff, specifically the replacement of fire alarms and intrusion detection systems at all of our schools. In addition, we're taking $400,000 out of the maintenance reserve to balance the maintenance budget, and that is an increase of $100,000 from the prior year. So appropriations. What respectable budget, I ask you, is complete without the pie chart? None. So, and it tells the story. The picture is worth 1,000 words. As we said before, compensation and benefits makes up the lion's share of the budget. Why? Because we have people as our resource. That's our product. Capital projects, small amount, transportation, and everything else at 10%. I will say that this is the one area where changes were made, reflected from the prior budget. Specifically, regular programs increased because of the extra teachers. We talked about special education increase from the tentative budget because of the one extra teacher and the aforementioned teachers that we needed to add back to the budget. Co-curricular and athletics decreased a little bit because of the adjustment that we talked about having to make. So I've been told that, again, the budget increased 0.29%. Some have said to me, well, that's not good enough, that the budget should decrease. We shouldn't have an increase in the budget. So I submit to those who ask that question or think that way, that if, and it's legitimate, if you back out the capital outlay portion, which really is not part of the core budget, you get a reduction from the prior year budget of $226,000 plus, or 0.32%. So legitimately, without taking into account the capital projects, our operating budget actually decreased, which again is even more impressive work that the board did here. The per pupil cost, the same. Our enrollment projected is the same, and it's pretty stable from this year, considering the fact that we're counting on those who have opted for home schooling to come back to us next year. And again, the statewide cost per pupil below the average, administrative costs per pupil well below the average. And those who are budget savvy know to take a look at all the metrics on our district and other districts during the Taxpayer's Guide to Education, which can be found on the New Jersey Department of Education website. So property taxes. Again, the operating budget component and the debt service budget component we spoke about before, one increased and one decreased. We talk about how we calculate the tax rate here for a school. You take your total taxes for the operating budget and the debt service budget, divided by what the tax assessor tells us the township is worth in ratables, multiply times 100, and that's your tax rate. So let's look at that. 50.9 million on the operating budget, a shade over 3 million on the debt service budget, divided by the almost $4 billion in assessed valuation from the town, gives a school tax rate of 1.369. What does that mean to me, right, if I live in town? The tax assessor gives us the assessed value of my property. I take that number that he gives me, I divide it by 100, I multiply times 1.369, and that ought to be right on for the school portion of property taxes for the coming year. So let's look at that as it pertains to the average home. Again, that information is given to us by the tax assessor. The home value, value of the average home increase, which is good. That helps the tax rate drive down. The school tax rate increased minimally. On the average home, it's an increase of $72.99 for the year, $6.08 per month. And if you speak tax penny, it is less than 2. So what's next? May 8th, 48 hours from now, by law, we have to post what's called the user-friendly budget to the district website. If you want to know what that is, take a look at the website tonight. On the very home page of our website, and you'll see the current user-friendly budget. By tomorrow afternoon, we should have the new 21-22 user-friendly budget on our website. The 14th is the submission deadline statutorily. As Dr. Clark said, July 1st, 2 things happen. The budget that is approved for next year is enacted, and we start the budget process for the, I can't even say it, 2022, 2023 budget. So with that, I thank you. Again, sincerely thank Dr. Clark, Mr. Decker, the administrative team, the Board of Education for its unwavering support, members of the public for your interest, really, in coming out to talk about this with us. We work together as a team, and everybody, I believe firmly, is doing everything that they can. So thank everyone for your time, and that's it.
Mr. DeGeorge, we thank you for that very thorough thorough budget analysis. At this time, we will have public comment. An audience member wishing to make a comment shall raise his or her hand, and when called upon, state their name, address or affiliation, and intention to make a statement. Comments shall be limited to agenda items only. Comments shall be addressed to the board president. Comments shall be made on one issue at a time. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. No audience member will be recognized twice until all who wish to comment have been recognized. At this time, would any of you like to make a comment? Please stand up and state your name.
Thank you. My name is Ron Martin.
Ron, can you talk up a little bit? Thank you.
Okay, good, better. My name is Ron Martin. I live at 44 Dunbury. I also chair the Concerned Citizens.
Ron, 1 second. Mr. Lytle, I cannot hear him.
He's not getting, you can speak into the mic.
I am.
Okay.
All right, wait 1
Hello.
second. Ron, wait 1 second. Mr. Lytle's up in the control booth.
I like technology. Wonderful. Can you hear me now?
Hold on. Mr. Lytle, are you?
Twelve.
Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Better?
I can't.
Better?
I can't.
Yeah, I know.
If I get any closer, I'll be behind it. Okay. My name is Ron Martin. I live at 44 Dunbury, right here in town. I chair the Concerned Citizens of Lacey Coalition. Some of you may know of it, some of you may not. When we look at the budget and listening to Mr. DeGeorge, what you need is a good shot in the arm with additional revenue. And I'd like to bring to your attention, there is an opportunity for, and I don't know how it would work between the town and the school district, but we have been proposing a hazardous waste and radiological ordinance for the town. Several other communities have done that, and it is an excellent source of revenue. And what it means is all of the stored nuclear canisters, because they are being stored, and that was not the intent when we had the plant made, there is a fee that Indian Point up in New York, Pilgrim up in Plymouth, Massachusetts have enacted. And so there would lie an opportunity for additional revenues. Now, I don't know, and someone can tell me, when the town would get money from that, what percentage or any percentage would come back to the school district?
Well, that's it.
We have a meeting with the town council Monday, so we could bring up their discussions they've had with you,
Okay,
and we could report back to you.
sure, please appreciate that. But I can't think of any other way where you would get, it's not found money at all, it's money that would be earned for the storage. But there's a considerable chunk of change on the table and would really help the district.
Right, and it's definitely worthwhile to check into it because we do need the revenue.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comments at this time? Seeing none,
Mrs. McAvoy, can I also say that he's received 0 comments through our Google platform?
thank you. Okay, moving right along. Can I have a motion to move that the board amend the tentative budget for the 2021-2022 school year as follows?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza,
Yes.
Mrs. Downing, Mr. Polino,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. Thank you. Item number 8. Can I have a motion to move that the board adopt the final budget for the 2021-2022 school year?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza,
No.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Polino,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes. At this time, we will have board comment. Mrs. Claus, do you have any comments?
Just thank you, Patrick, for all your hard work and everybody's hard work this year. I think next year we're going to have to hopefully bring in some revenue so we can get through the cuts that are coming. But, thank you again, and I'm ready to get this done. So,
Thank you. Mrs. DeSenza.
While I understand all the hard work that goes into making this budget balance, in my opinion, this budget does not meet the board's fiduciary obligation to the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peters?
Yes. Just a question on Mr. DeGeorge's presentation there about trying to bring revenue in. I was sitting there thinking, going through my head what we could do to bring revenue in. And a two-part question, Mr. DeGeorge. One, is there any penalty for paying our loans back early? I think we had 10 years left on one and 15 on another one. Is that correct? When I
Right.
saw that presentation you just gave?
Right, there is, are we talking the leases?
Yes.
Yes, no, we refuse to enter into any lending agreement where there is a prepayment penalty. We will not sign those
Okay.
contracts.
We've got some numerous correspondence regarding to the SRE credits coming up high for the solar panels,
Yes,
and we've been cashing them in.
yes.
And is there any possible way we can apply that to the leases to get them paid off, that we're out of debt, that we're not making that monthly payment?
The SREC revenue to what, I'm sorry?
The revenue that we're getting in for the extra credits for the solar panels.
Yep.
The question I'm asking is, can we apply that to the principal of our loan to shorten the time on that to free money up for us, because we're losing money from the state?
Do you mean the debt service?
Yes.
No, the law says that the money has to come from the town. It can't come from us. It has to come from the town.
From the tax.
From taxes.
From the taxes.
The amount of money we're doing well with the solar panels, they've been up for how many years now? Do we know? Regina, you were on the board then.
11.
How long?
11.
11 years?
Well, yeah, 20.
Yeah, but I was just going to say 12.
Maybe we should possibly, as a board, to bring more revenue in, look into the newer upgrade solar panels, if there's room on the buildings to put more on, to maximize that and lower our electric bill even more and get more credits, as we're doing so well with them.
Yeah, I'm actually,
no more
we talked about that at our Finance Facilities Operations Committee, rather. We have to, because they're legacy panels themselves, we're going to have to keep upgrading to replace some panels that are newer and more efficient. So in that process, that will happen. And in addition, the board has wisely chosen to continue the direct install program, which continues to lower our energy costs. There's more to do. There's more work to do. So every idea is a good idea.
Yeah, I'd like to look in that. If there's any room left on the roof so we could, because the newer solar panels have such a better capacity of generation, even if they don't have as much sun exposure, something's better than nothing.
Agreed.
And I'm thinking if we have the older panels getting full sun, and we put maybe the newer technology panels with a little less sun, we're still going to manufacture that electricity,
Yeah,
with the new
we-
technology.
We could certainly talk about that.
Excuse
That's-
me, I was under the impression that all the possible roof space was already used, so I don't know about putting up additions.
Yeah, but Ms. DeSanza, we have huge, huge fields
There's
in
only,
our schools
the fields are a different story.
that are
and
not
then
used.
There's none on
We could
the,
actually do a solar field out there like Central has right up the road.
Yeah, there's none on the
And fence it
district
in to keep
office
the
either.
students out of
I
there.
don't think the whole roof has been used, but.
Yeah, I think we did, in looking at that project when I got here, I think we did everything we could do within reason, without making the referendum so high that it was unattainable or too low. I think we went just right. But, to Mr. Peters' point, this is a new day and new technology is available, so we're obligated to look at that, and we will. I appreciate
If I
it.
can add to that, yeah, and I know this is a budget meeting, but we're talking about solar panels, but, when we do look into that, I believe, because I own my solar panels, that we only get 15 years of selling our SRECs, and then after that, it's just whatever free electric we get. So before we look into getting new panels and stuff, we have to see if adding or changing or stuff if it's going to be cost effective, because we really only have 4 years left to sell our excess energy this point. So
But if we get new ones, is that extended again, or is that from the time that we got the original ones?
I believe it, because it's the generator, so it's still the same generation system. We're just upgrading it, so if we're going to increase the panels, more efficient panels, we're gonna have to pay for those panels and whatever labor and costs, and we're only gonna have 4 years left to sell our excess energy. So if we're gonna spend so much money to do that, the cost may outweigh the benefit to upgrade at this point, because we're 11 years into a 15-year term. Something to think about.
So it's worth checking into
Yeah,
and just getting figures.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, no idea is a bad idea.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
That's it, thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Downing?
I really have no new comments. I just want to thank everyone for putting this budget together. And Patrick, thanks for the presentation. You always kind of do it to a T, so we all understand. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scanlon?
Oh, excuse me. I first would like to thank the board for the work and effort that they put into finalizing the budget. We all came together 2 separate nights along with the public, and everyone had their opportunity to say how they felt about it. I left the last meeting thinking that we were all in agreement. I didn't realize that someone was objection to the budget because nothing was said at the last meeting. So Mrs. DeSenza certainly has a right to say that, but it would have been nice to say it during the workshop. And thank you to the public. I like the idea that you brought up tonight, and working on an ordinance to charge for the storage. If I heard it right, I was having trouble hearing those, but we just have to convince the township to share the money with us to help the school budget. But it was a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the board too. We are very, very transparent this year with the budget. And Mr. DeGeorge, thanks for putting up with us and all our comments and suggestions. And I feel we had a real impact as a board. So thank you very much. Thank you to the public for coming out. We appreciate having you here. At this time,
Can I say something?
I forgot Mr. Polino, Vice President Polino. Comments,
I
please.
have to get you cue cards, I think.
I know, Skip
because
was going to give me a list last time.
You have somewhere to be, so.
Mr. Polino.
So, yeah, again, I want to thank, like everybody else said, the board on their hard work and administration. You know, none of us up here like to vote yes on any type of increase for the public. You know, our goal is to, you know, get a zero increase as much as possible. But, you know, consider what we've been facing. You know, a $72 average a year increase is not all that horrific. But again, it's not something we like to do. But I do want to point out there what Mr. DeGeorge said on his presentation, which was very nice, by the way, Mr. DeGeorge, very informative, is that our operating budget actually decreased, and our capital projects is what increases our budget. And if for those that aren't familiar with capital projects are, it's basically the upkeep and changing and renewing our facilities and stuff for our students and staff. We can't not do these things and not upgrade our facilities. It's just not good. You know, we have to, certain things we have to meet as far as the state requirements, you know, like our air conditioning, our heating, and everything else like that. So I think administration and the board's done a great job in decreasing our operating budget, because, you know, we are a business, whether we like it or not. We are the largest employer, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. DeGeorge, right, in the township of Lacey. We employ over 600 people, yes?
Yes, that is absolutely.
Yeah, so we're the largest employer in this township, and we've decreased our budget. And I don't know if, you know, other businesses can say that. So we've done a great job here, and our administration's done a great job. But we need to increase, you know, our capital stuff to maintain our facilities. So again, I want to thank everybody for a great job, and then hopefully next year we're going to have, you know, some different things to look at, and we can keep it as where we are now. So thank you for the comments.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, do you have anything? I don't want to leave you out.
No, that's fine. Just want to thank the board for their support during the budget process. And I do agree that this year was very transparent and extremely beneficial, I believe, to the public and the board. So thank you all for your support.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, can we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.